to say, oh, this is terrible, blah, 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 blah. Dude, it's putting food on your table if you don't, whether you realize it or not. It's an economy right here in L.A. If you don't like it, you need to move from L.A. It's like just like somebody. It's like some friendly going to Vegas and saying gambling bad, right? Gambling bad, and coming out and saying it's treif and don't want anything to do with it. Then you don't need to live in Vegas because 65% of the people working there are directly employees from the casinos, and the other 35% are indirectly getting their money from it. So whether you're dealing with doctors or lawyers or a street cleaner, you take away those casinos and the gamblers, everybody's out of work. 100% of the people are out of work, and you have no one in that town. You have no food. You shouldn't be there. You know what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Yeah.
So it's hypocritical for any frummy in L.A., this is my opinion, any frummy in L.A., any Jew in L.A., to say, oh, porn is terrible, and then blah, 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 because you're getting your food from it. Some part of your food is coming from it. Not all of it, but some part of it. Like if you have meat and potatoes, it's like the zucchinis next to the potatoes. Something is being paid for by the fact that we have porn here. Am I right?
Yes.
So that you agree with?
Yes.
Okay, let's move on.
What about if you're a rabbi of a shul and a pornographer wants to donate $20,000 to you?
What's the problem?
I was just curious if there was one.
I don't know what the problem is. Is there a problem?
I don't know. I remember they wouldn't take my money at Young Israel Century City when they kicked me out. They said, and we're refunding the $500 you gave to the shul.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a different thing. We were talking about intermarriage before, right?
Yeah.
We'll talk about intermarriage for a second. We're going to go back to it.
Yeah.
In 1988, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he was alive, had a whole thing going on Yehudi. I don't know if you were around for this.
I wasn't Jewish yet, but...
Were you aware of this whole issue that was going on? The 1988 elections in Israel, the big issue on the table, at least for all the Frummies, was Mi Yehudi. Who is a Jew?
Yeah.
And the question
I heard
was
this on NPR.
Yeah. Okay, and the question was, would the Israeli government allow non-Orthodox conversions to be considered Jewish? And up until 1988, they had always had to be according to the rabbinate. The rabbinate is from, and if you were non-Orthodox conversion, you would not be recognized as a Jew in the state of Israel. This was a major, and this was going to be challenged in the 1988 election. This was the main issue on the table. And Lubavitcher Rebbe was jumping up and down and screaming, saying this is the most important thing that's ever happened in the history of the state of Israel. They cannot allow, the state of Israel cannot allow non-kosher conversions to be considered legitimate, because whatever is good for Israel is good for the rest of the world. And the rest of the world is going to learn, oh, it's okay to have, a non-kosher conversion, and then it's going to cause massive confusion.
Yeah.
Okay. Here in town, Chabad, of, the main Chabad over in Westwood, the one that makes the money for the whole West Coast, the four main contributors at that time
intermarried Jews
were Jewish men in Hollywood, producers, who were all married to non-Jews, and their kids were not Jewish. Okay.
Okay.
Would you say to Chabad that they should kick out stop taking the money from those four guys?
No. Why? Because they can take that money and use it for holy purposes.
Right. So what's the problem? If Chabad can take the money, when the Rebbe is screaming, how wrong it is, to have these non-kosher conversions, and these four guys all had wives with these non-kosher conversions, and you can take their money. Why can't a shul here in town take the money from a guy who wants to give tzedakah? He works really hard. He's in the entertainment business, the adult entertainment business. What's the problem?
Good point.
That's the way I look at it. I just look at it practically.
Do you fear God?
Absolutely.
So you don't have a problem with that? You don't think it's primitive?
Primitive to fear God?
Yeah.
What do you mean by primitive?
Oh, it's better to love God and kind of modern.
Well, it's everything. one is not the negation of the other.
Right.
There's actually separate mitzvahs, and they're enumerated by the Rambam in Sefer Mitzvahs, that you have to love God, you have to fear God, you have to have an awe of God, you have to understand God, you have to know God. These are all separate. Of the 613, each one on its own gets one of these.
Yeah.
That's how important and separate each one is. That there's not, just because you fear God doesn't mean you don't love Him. You have to love God, and you have to fear Him, you have to have awe of Him, you have to know Him, you have to believe in Him.
Do you think kids should fear their parents? Have an element of fear?
That's a mitzvah.
It is, to fear your parents?
Uh-huh.
I know you're supposed to honor your parents.
And fear Him. Well, you know how it works?
How does it work?
You have to honor. One time it comes around and it says honor your parents. Keep it up at aim.
Yeah.
And the other time it comes around and it says fear your parents. And it says it twice. But
they reverse the order.
They reverse the order, so you know about this.
Yeah, because it comes more naturally to honor your mother and to fear your father.
Right. And Rashi points this out. He goes, why do they flip it?
Right.
Because you need to be told to fear your mom.
Right. So do you think the Oscars are a modern idol?
What, the Oscar? Well, having credits on a movie that won an Oscar.
Yeah.
Is that an idol because it's like a statue of a graven image?
And people devote a good part of their lives to trying to get one.
Oh, well, okay, then I think there's two separate things.
And they kiss it.
Okay, there's three different things. There's one is that there's a graven image.
Right.
And that's of a human being.
Yeah.
And I know that there's a lot of commentaries on Torah, and they poskin. What's going on?
Nothing. Keep going. That's just... Keep going.
And they poskin that that you can't have any kind of graven image like that. So like any kind of statue or any kind of thing like that would be a problem. So according to those opinions, you shouldn't have one of those around. But not everybody is like, so, it's like, you know what, it wasn't designated for, so nobody bows to this thing, nobody believes it has any power, so it's not a problem, right? That's one aspect. So, like, I would personally probably follow, in that case, like, it's not so bad. I'm kind of lenient here. Because nobody ever, like, bows down to this Oscar or, thinks it has powers, right? So I'm okay with that. What's the next one? The next one was would you people kiss it?
Yeah.
That's a little weird. Okay, that's like their own superstition, or they now turning it in their, you know what I mean? That's their problem.
Yeah.
I wouldn't kiss it, right? And what's the other one? You work your whole lives toward. I don't think there's anything wrong with working towards something your whole life. That's not necessarily, a specific mitzvah. Like, I worked my whole life so that I can get to the point where I can keep Shabbos, right? Like, that's a mitzvah. I'm working towards that goal. But you could also have like secular goals, like in your work, you're a doctor, or you're a lawyer, and you want to get, you want to be like the Supreme Court justice or something. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You have like your own, like God put you here for many reasons. I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as it doesn't take away from your Torah.
Is it okay to be intimate with a blow-up doll?
See what I'm telling you? Like, there's these curveballs. Like, 1 second you're talking about the Oscar. Is it? What do you mean by intimate?
Sexual.
Oh. Well, here's the problem. The problem is there's a problem of if you're talking about a guy, right?
Yeah.
For women, I don't see there's any problem at all.
Okay.
There's I can't think of a problem for a woman to use it. But a guy's got the problem of spilling seed, right?
But as long as he doesn't spill his seed.
I'm not a Rob. I'm not going to poskin this, but I'm not sure what the problem might be. But here's the thing.
He's just tired of going to bed alone, and so just.
Oh, it just has like a pillow.
But it's a blow-up doll. He kind of wraps his arms around.
You know what? You have to ask your Rob. Ask your LOR, as he said. But here's the thing on this. If you have a heter for it, if you're allowed to masturbate, if you're allowed to, and you can get a heter for it, right? Then I don't see what the problem. There is no problem with it, would there? Right? And then suddenly porn isn't so bad. It's back in the picture, isn't it?
That's a good point.
Right? We can talk about that too, since we're
talking. It's funny. I know a rabbi. His nickname is Rabbi Loophole.
Loophole. See, because here's my thing on that. Here's my thing. Porn is, like I just talked to you before, like it's really hypocritical for people to say porn bad when they're living in LA, for instance.
Yes.
If you really believe that porn is bad, and
you live in Utah.
You go live in Utah. Yeah, don't live in LA because you're going to be eating because of porn, and you should really stop eating. You know, it's like